Yeah. Hey, Rob, remember when we were at your Lit Live like 2 weeks ago and you thought you said fuck? Remember you said, remember that?
I said it in my brain.
You
But
said
it
it.
didn't actually come out of my mouth. That's one of the strange things that made me realize, like how many things do we think we actually say that we don't say? Like it was kind of nuts because I was sure that I said it, and then watching it back, I'm like, wow, I must have just thought about saying it like really loud.
You were there for like what? Like so basically through that whole hour of the show, or the whole hour you did it. You were just sitting there thinking, oh my god, like I'm gonna. Like everybody's hates me. Like you're waiting for the hate mail in the chat to come in.
I'm thinking like I'm doing if it was like a fun goof around kind of thing, like it didn't have any purpose to it, I wouldn't really care. But like we're promoting an online product and trying to promote marketing and all. And at the beginning of it, it's super unprofessional. I just drop an F-bomb out of nowhere.
Yeah, right.
Like, I just thought I got to erase that like immediately, but it turned out I didn't actually say it, so we're cool.
So yeah,
so it was just one of those in my head things. How many times does that happen, Rob?
I wonder. That's what I wonder about, man. How many times do you think? Like, how do you don't know? You might think you say more things out loud than you actually do. It's kind of that was like an alarming thing to me. Like, wow, I don't know what I'm actually.
It was kind of hilarious afterwards because when you said it, I was like, is he must like Deb just said he went through that whole show thinking. Did I say that? Did I say that? Did I say that? Is this content coming out right? Is everything working right now? That's what I was like, that was a hilarious moment. I wish we had that whole afterwards moment content for that was hilarious.
Oh man, it's funny whenever you do things live, especially because whatever happens. I enjoy that. Because then you can't go back. We talked about this before, but like I'm so done with editing things because it takes so long. I get stuck in like this analysis paralysis thing where I can't make a decision. If I just do it live, there's no options. It's done. It's out there. You're finished with it. I think if you treat more things like they're live, you're better off. Because
that's kind of what our brand is too. Like I always said to Deb, I said, hey man, I'm gonna live my truth. I'm not gonna try to be clean cut and all that. Right. I'm just gonna, whatever comes out of my mouth is gonna come out of my mouth, and we're just gonna leave it at that. And I kind of think like that's the brand right there. And that was one of the questions that I was gonna ask you also. Like, is that the brand? Is that your brand? Like, back in the day when you started, it was obviously radio, right? Obviously, you started in radio. Now, you had to have that brand at that particular time. Is there any time that you want to just be like, I want to come out of this brand. I want to say F right now on my podcast. I want to burn down. I just want to do it all. I just had enough of it. Is that ever crossed your mind?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I watch like tons of Joe Rogan, lots of stand-up comedy podcasts and just stand-up comedy in general. So I, and off camera, really off of content that I create, I can have a pretty filthy mouth, but I just, what I think of is like, I don't know why I think this way. I just kind of do. I guess half because I've been in radio for so long and you can't drop an F-bomb on the air or anything like that. So it's like, I'm kind of trained not to in a way, I think. And then on the other hand, I think like, man, if you position them correctly, dropping a curse word makes a lot more impact if you use it sparingly. You know what I mean? If you just kind of, it's like Gary Vee. Like I love Gary Vee, but you don't even hear him dropping F-bombs because he says it so much. It's like him saying or the,
But also it could be like a superpower, I guess, because you could just swear on demand, and like, or you can just keep swearing and like, no matter, people just go, oh, that's just Gary. That's how Gary is. Gary just likes to cuss a lot. And so you can't even be held accountable whenever you say something totally messed up.
But it loses the impact, like you said. It loses the impact, and if you hit it at the right time, it's going to make impact because they're not used to hearing it coming from the person. So I definitely get that.
Yeah, and I think a part of it is like I don't really find. I don't know. I mean, I would if I felt like I should. I don't feel I need to for whatever reason. I don't know why, because I do. I love swearing. I love dirty comedy. That's some of my favorite stuff, but like there has to be a certain time and place for it. I don't know why. What'd you say?
I just thought it was funny because you're like, I love dirty comedy.
Dude, I love everything.
You know what? Part of me strikes you as the guy who's sitting there at Deadpool 2 when it opens up, and you're like the biggest super fan there, and like every single you're drunk and watching Ryan Reynolds laugh at every single dirty jokes he makes and all that stuff. But I'm joking because that was me.
Well,
So
if you would,
that was actually
meet
me.
my wife, you would understand. Like we have a side of us that is just we just go off, dude, and it's a lot of fun. But I think I follow this guy Ty Lopez a lot, right? Ty, I've been in a bunch of his programs, and one of his things, he doesn't really swear that much either. I mean, it turns a certain audience away from you, right? So if you're trying to build some sort of, and not saying that I'm worried about it taking people away from what I'm doing, but I feel like it's an unnecessary distractor for a lot of people. Like they'll just be hung up on that. Or if you talk about certain thing, like if you get into politics, people get hung up on that. Like they're hung up on it. So they can't even hear what you're saying half the time. Like I'm sure some people don't even listen to Gary Vee because he swears so much.
Yeah.
You know, he probably turns a lot of people off with that, and he's still super popular, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
but
and that's what I was actually gonna address, because I think what part of that is when you have Gary Vee who cusses a lot, and people still love him, is because he never put himself in that box where like he was always that way. Like from what at least from the general populace, what we understand of Gary. It's like he fits that box, and he's always been that way. And because of that, people can love that and attach themselves to Gary Vee when he's just cussing up a storm and saying "fuck this" and shit that. You know, no one cares.
And he just released a video this week about a woman asking him that question, and he said it probably 20 times in the answer that he was given to her. I think he doesn't care. He's sort of like how I approach it too. Yeah. I kind of look like, I mean, there's a market share where everybody can be out here doing things, and I'm only targeting a specific market share to be effective. If you're trying to, I feel, this is just me, I feel like I'm not trying to appease to everybody, because if somebody feels that, hey, that's a little too much because I dropped the F-bomb or I cuss here and there, or how I handle situations, I really don't want to do business with them, to be honest. I want to stay in my path, and I think that's why there's different genres of things. And I just say, if you're okay with that, find it and just, knock that out of the park and be okay with that. But everybody has different goals on their sheet, so I ain't mad at nobody. Do whatever you got to do. I was just always curious, because last week when we were at your one show, what was it? The content creation, not the show, the actual the
Lit Live. We were recording the.
Well, we had the content.
The content workshop. Yeah,
we had a workshop.
Content workshop, and you were saying like what you were doing like back in the day, like how you dropped out of college. What was it? Were you playing a game or something like that? And smoked a bud or something?
Tons of Halo 2. I mean, I was like deep into Halo 2. It was bad. Yeah.
Was it bad?
I played Halo 2 a lot on Xbox, but I was gonna say, what a phrase that stuck out to me, what you said was Halo 2 was the reason you dropped out of college. Like, do you think that's like actually true? Like,
well, I mean, Halo 2 was the reason. It's probably my boredom with life or college or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're going into deeper reasoning, but I mean, like you said that, like, do you think that's like really the truth? Like, you were playing this game and it was because of this boredom that you had in your life?
I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with it more than I was obsessed with college. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, because like my friend had a big basement, and there was like, I don't know, 12 of us. So there was like LAN parties before online gaming started,
right?
And there we had like 8 TVs down there all plugged in and hooked up. And then online, Halo 2 was right around the time when online gaming started, which would have been like, I don't know, what year was that? Probably
2007, 2006, probably.
And we were just, oh dude, I was skipping college every day. My one buddy, I think he quit his job at one point because
because of gaming.
Dude, we were just playing. We were just nonstop. That's all we did, and I wasn't even that good. I was just obsessed with it.
You're just obsessed. So you weren't really. What were you in the middle of the pack of the 12 on who was the best? Were you losing more than winning? What?
Yeah. Like, what was the KD? What was your KD like right now? Tell me what the KD was.
What the hell's a KD?
Kill to death ratio, bro. You don't have a KD. Ratio.
I don't even think those things were talked about back then. I don't know. I mean, I was probably 10 out of 12 in the room.
Oh, so you were at the top.
No. He said 10th out of 12. 10th out of 12. So he was a scrub.
I just played for fun.
Oh, okay. So you there's no excuse for that. Wow. I could see if you were.
You weren't even good, Rob. You weren't even any good, and you were playing like that.
That's why I had to quit. Well, dude, even if you're not good, it's still fun. I mean, I would play by myself and just go into like a beginner's room and just run around and destroy people. But then I'd start playing with my friends or anybody else who was a little bit higher level. I was never great at video games. I just loved playing. For whatever reason, I wasn't that. I like was just. I don't have that skill. I don't know what it is. What it is. I just like playing them though. But I had to stop because that's the thing, dude. Halo 2. It dawned on me, like, dude, you are wasting months, years, and it's not saying it's not wasted necessarily because I'm having fun. But whenever 6 hours goes by and you don't even notice it going by.
Yeah,
that's a sign of like, oh shit, man, you should probably do something else because this is
taking your time.
Too much of anything is bad.
This is like the real big thing that I kind of wanted to get to because me personally, this is an interesting story for me because I struggled with essentially video game addiction. I believe it's a real thing. I think anybody can be addicted to anything. And, and now I'm out doing things where, hell, recently I have because I've been at home dying of illness and now I'm not. But now I like I said, for a time, there was, I couldn't tell you. If I would have told you that I would not play a game for a month straight, I would look at you like I'm crazy. If someone said, Devin, you won't play a game for a month straight, I'd be like, no, like I would have to touch a controller. But I started getting so busy into what I'm doing now and like so passionate about it, right? And this is kind of ties into what you're about, building superheroes. That inspiration, creating superheroes. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Melvin. I appreciate it. Melvin joined the chat. Said, glad you are better, Dev. Love you, Melvin. Thanks, man. But anyway, as I was saying, it was such an issue for me because you'd sit there, you'd watch yourself, like you said, waste all of this time on things you wish you could be doing. And there was this voice. I don't know if you had it, the voice in the back of your head that's saying, what are you doing? Why aren't we doing this? Like, there's these things you should be doing. And then you would be like, okay, I'll do that after this game. And then 3 games later, you're still playing. And you're like, why are you still playing? Why are you still playing? And then you just kept playing. And then you're like, oh, it's too late now. So I guess I'll do it tomorrow. Like crazy stuff like that.
It's somebody was just talking about this. Video games are that, social media it can be that, anything can be that thing, but it's like, it's just procrastination, right? You have all this stuff that you either have to do or you want to do, but that video game's a lot of fun, dude. And you can sit there and play it for 38 hours and like,
you're deflecting from handling some business.
I think it's the gratification.
That's the bottom line to it.
Now,
I think it's the gratification. I was just going to say, I think it's the gratification. I think when people play games, it's the same way how people get addicted to gambling or whatever. It's that release of dopamine, whatever it is.
Dude, yeah.
That like you're like, oh, I got all these kills. Oh, or like, oh, I'm only 7 away from this. Just like if you were gambling, like, oh, maybe it'll be the next turn. Oh, 7 more kills and I unlock this camo with this eagle gun, the Desert Eagle. And I need that. And then if I get this, then I get that, and then I get the diamond. Oh, I got to grind all day to get that for nothing. It's a digital achievement that in a year, because they're going to make another Call of Duty that's completely and utterly worthless.
Right.
But now people are making a living off of doing gaming, though.
Yeah.
So what can you say to a kid if he's doing that, if you're a parent and he's down there and he's saying, I'm about to be a gamer, I'm going to be a gamer, and he's got it. What do you do? How do you do that? How do you do that? It's just like a kid coming to you saying, I'm going to be the next Mark McGuire or Sammy So whatever. You know what I mean? Or any sport or athlete, you obviously have to work out and take time to do it. Now that they opened the lane for it, I mean, but what's the reality? I know it's a small percentage. So what do you do as a parent, to the kid that's saying, this is what I want to do? Look at that guy that just won $1 million and got a contract, and he's living off of playing games all the time. And it's one of those things, I guess, where technology takes it.
Yeah, it is. It's a known fact that the more you play video games, the more dopamine you release. So you drain your dopamine receptors. So then it takes more and more to fill that up, which is why there was this thing, and they were saying like that's why kids are so bored in school, because whenever you're driving around in GTA shooting people, it's really hard to go to school and sit down in class and pay attention
and listen to a dry teacher.
Because they're never going to reach those levels of engagement. I mean, there's nothing. You're not going to create some visceral experience in the classroom that's going to be as engaging as shooting hookers on the street.
That's what they're going to have.
Education has to become this, and this is where I think a lot of the world is heading. I look at my son Max, he's 5, and I'm thinking like, I don't want him to go to junior high. I don't like junior high and high school. I think it's just a waste. You don't really learn all that much. It's dangerous now. I mean, I can't imagine having a kid in like 7th grade thinking that somebody could walk into the school and shoot it up because it's happening so much.
Absolutely.
And I think like there's got to be a shift at some point, because there's a lot of online education. There's so much online education that's so much better than in-school education, because you can learn it faster. You're actually learning from people who know what the hell they're talking about, because they're doing that thing. They're not just teachers who are talking about doing that thing. And you can gamify it. If you can gamify education, it'll change everything, right? If you just make games that are awesome, that are also educational, like I think that's the combo that could work. It's just who's going to make those games.
Yeah, right.
And how they're going to get it passed. How are they going to get it passed up in Congress for that
to
happen?
Make it fun. Just make a fun game that's educate. Like, just throw some facts and like there could be badass.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. There could
action.
be. There definitely could be. There's games like Deadliest Warrior that came out back in the day that did teach you about like basically history of these ancient races of people that would fight against each other, or more modern day medieval. But I was going to say that I can say that from video games though, I mean, I've learned a lot of stupid, useless knowledge, a lot more stupid, useless knowledge that I will never use. But I will say that I've probably learned some skills, I think, from it, where maybe like it's like logistical. Whenever like you're looking at inventory or things like that in your brain, the spatial reasonings, not spatial, but reasoning within those kind of spaces, like doing exercise where you can say, I need this here and that there, and I need to build this like that. Those kind of things. I mean, especially if you play like games like Minecraft or whatever. I think those are there are skills that can be learned from playing video games, but I think you need like the particular guidance that's just not, you have to like be able to figure out the critical thinking skills. I think that's the important part of how do I use any bit of information and apply it to the outside world.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be rewards too. Like the reason I stopped playing video games because I played Grand Theft Auto 4 so much and I beat it. I got to the end of it and it was the most unsatisfying end ever. And I'd spent like thousands of hours in that game. I thought like, dude, why does like no video game ever has a good ending? There's never like an ending where I'm like satisfied, right? So what if the ending of the game was like a diploma or something, like, hey, you were qualified for doing this, or like you learned history, or you learned, I don't know, whatever it might be.
That is interesting.
There could be an incentive to winning. There's something there.
Interesting when you're saying about putting it into like a school curriculum.
Right.
Think of in that manner and try to find a way to adjust, like maybe the quicker like how you have honor students that bump up in class. They obviously there's people that play video games that get to the end and beat them quicker. Use that as an incentive also in school to say, oh, okay, I completed 3 years faster. I got the knowledge. I got my diploma at the end of it. Now I'm moving on. I think it would create a healthy, learning, competitive situation in the school, and it would work. I think it would work.
Yeah, I don't think every kid would be able to do it, right? Because some kids, I guess, there's probably some kids who don't like video games. I don't know who they are, but like,
I was one of them. I like to go out and do it. I like to go outside and actually do whatever the game does.
But I think like, and I know if you're young though, because like Devin, you're what, 20? Are you 22? So like anybody younger than you, your age, anybody younger than you, I think everybody plays video games.
It's part of the culture.
I mean, whether it's Candy Crush on your phone, or it's Halo, or not Halo. I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, people play Halo still, but I mean Call of Duty, Minecraft, Fortnite, Fork Knife. Whatever it is.
It's going to be something new every year. Something, those are definitely meant to be out for 1 year, make a $1 gajillion.
Oh, yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
And next year, make another $1 gajillion. So whoever's coming up with that format is one smart. You know what I mean? They're smart.
Yeah.
They did the smart thing.
They have exclusive rights. I mean, this is just real quick about the game Madden that drives me crazy is they will never make a good Madden game.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous.
Because they own all the exclusive rights to create NFL games, and anybody else that tries, they don't have enough budget to even compete. And so Madden every year they do little small incremental changes to the game that are just ridiculous, and all they really are selling you is a new roster. Hell, and they're giving you old features that were already in the game 10 years ago. Like they just added the Pro Bowl into the game and claimed it was a new feature, but it was in Madden. It was in like 2K18 or 2K8. Madden 2K8 or whatever. Like, it was back then. It was the Pro Bowl. You could play in the Pro Bowl, and they said you couldn't because the helmets wouldn't render or something. That was their excuse. And it just boggles my mind that people, like, they can get away with it, selling you something that was already there and say it's a new feature, because the kids that are, out playing it now, they don't know that it was a feature in the game 10 years ago because it hasn't been there for 10 years.
But dude, it wouldn't even matter. They don't even need to put any new features in, because you're just gonna buy the updated roster on the new game. Madden is so insane to me because, like, you could easily update that game. The same game that you bought 10 years ago could just be updated on Xbox Live every year for free, or like $5 or something. It's so stupid, man. But I get it. Like, it makes perfect sense. Like, look at Fortnite. The money creation from that game is insane. It's a free game, but everything's a purchased add-on. Like, it's so genius.
Yeah, everybody's like, because
that's the genius of it.
They go, it's free, so I'm willing to pay for the little skins and whatever, and then they'll pay for the battle pass, and the battle pass is $15 a season, which a season's like 3 months. So then you're paying. So think about it. If you pay for the battle pass all 3 seasons, you just paid for a $60 full AAA title video game. Right? If you buy it. And on top of that, all it does is give you more achievement. That's all it really does. All it does is say, here's some more stuff that you can unlock if you buy the battle pass, and you can get all the stuff that you could have got faster. And people buy it because it was free. They'll say, well, because it was free. And by the time they spend $240 on all that stuff, they'll still use that same reasoning. I have friends that I've actually talked to. I'm like, how can you use that same reasoning when talking about a game and saying, oh, well, it was free, but then you've already spent $240.
Yeah, it's genius move, man. I mean,
it's insanity on the user's end, and it's genius on the people that made it, the creators of the game. So in saying that brings up a good question. So you're around, like, in my age bracket, probably like 4 or 5 years different, somewhere in there. But back in the day when you started radio, let's say that. There was the format, the simple format. So there had to been some times when, like, the technology started coming. Were you on board with, like, the fast technology when you seen, like, maybe when YouTube came in, and all the social, the trend of where it was going with media was going? Were you on board with that right away, or did you give some resistance to it, or what happened then?
Yeah, I was on board pretty much. I wouldn't say right away, but I've had a Facebook fan page for almost 9 years. And I think that's not, I don't know how long they've been around for, but it's not much longer than a decade. So I did kind of jump on board early with it. And I think radio is interesting because I was lucky enough to, like, I was born in '83. So I got the internet in '96, and I lived half my life without it and half my life with it. So I feel kind of lucky because I remember what it's like to not have it, but I also know what it's like to have it. It's like, I guess, bridging the gap, if you want to.
Yeah, there you go. Right? Good plug.
There's this great book called Outliers, and the book Outliers is all about that. It's like people born at certain times. And if you're born at this certain point in time, like Bill Gates is an example. I'm not comparing myself to Bill Gates, but, like, as an example, he was born right near, I can't remember the exact thing, but he was born near a college that got one of the first computers or something like that, and he had access to it, and that his creativity along with that made everything happen much faster. So I think, like, radio is such an old form of media that really it's hurting because people don't know how to adapt and change in that world. I feel lucky, because I stepped in, man, and a lot of people that I worked with for such a long time, all they did was fear change. Everything was like, stop anything from changing. We want nothing to change.
To do with it. Yeah.
One of the old DJs, man, he passed away, I don't know, it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. But up until the time he passed away, he was still DJing, like, parties and dances with crates full of records. And not like mixing or anything, like, just because he couldn't evolve. He couldn't, like, he was, his van's packed full of equipment when all he had to have was a laptop and a hard drive.
Right. It takes him 10 hours just to set up, when now you could just walk in there, set it down, and press a button. Yeah. And you could be out there dancing with the crowd now. Right. You don't have to do much DJ. It's just pretty much a playlist.
Yeah,
and that's a hot playlist and playing it at the right time.
Right. Yeah, and that's, so when I look at radio, like, I embraced it. Luckily, I embrace it because that's what makes I just like change. Actually, I guess for somewhat of a lengthy period of my 20s, I didn't change very much, just because I was high a lot for the most part.
Smoking that bud. I love it.
But other than that, it was
truth,
just
Rob. Live your truth.
but the thing is like that I just always, I don't know, I enjoy technology. I like when things change. It's exciting because if you accept change, because literally everything is going to change.
Yeah.
For your entire life. It's the only guarantee is something's going to change. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So accept that.
Well,
You're gonna have a rough
taxes as well.
Taxes, yeah.
I was going to say, but you're right. Things are going to change. And we have a lot of people that would go against that grain. But there's something you said, and I wanted to touch on it. So, you're talking about in your 20s. This is the real thing I wanted to get at, because I think it's a cool story that I think people need to hear. Okay, so you're playing video games, you dropped out of college, you're smoking weed, you're getting high. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're getting the devil's lettuce, mom's chasing you with the broom. I'm not sure if that last part's true, but whatever. And what is that thing, right? Like, but maybe I don't know, maybe it's before wife and kids, but what was that thought, that quintessential thought or thing that made you go, I'm done with this. It's time to move on to the next stage of my life and do the thing that I really want to do.
Yeah, I don't know if there wasn't. It was a long. It still is a long, painful process. I'm still in the process. So it's like I think what happened was I just.
So when you say you're still smoking weed tomorrow.
I still am much more. I'm much the same person that I used to be. I haven't really changed all that much inside. But I guess what it is I was hanging out with people that weren't moving forward. And right. I just wasn't, but I never had like I think about this a lot, man, because what it comes back to me is like, I always think, man, if I could find myself now, and I think everybody thinks this, if I could find myself now in 7th grade, I'd like give myself a download of like tons of information and be like, here's what's really going on at 36. Here's what I figured out. That'd be so awesome.
So you go back. Would you go back if it said it right now? You could go back to
7th grade. Oh yeah, man, for sure.
Right.
Do it all of
it.
Because I think that, I mean, it's not that I regret it, it's whatever, but it'd be fun to go back with new information.
With the knowledge.
Yeah. Like as an experience. Yeah. I wouldn't want to like reverse my life back to 7th. Well, yeah, if I could, I would, I guess.
Well, only reason I said they had that thing on there where there was a thing where it said take the blue pill, go back, or go to 45 years old and have $40 million. And a lot of people are saying I'm taking it for because they were a little closer to it, like maybe 35, 37. Like I'll just take the 40 million. But I would say like only thing that I could see that I wouldn't want to go back is because if you got your kids, like you're going to go back. There's no guarantee you're going to be stuck with that kid. My kids are grown. Like I kind of love them guys. I don't want to go back and then knowing like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have these same kids. I might get some criminals, some thugs or something that are going to just, and knowing me, that's how it would go. Right. But the funny thing about when I was growing up, like I was just an out of control kid. I'm not even going to lie. I live my truth. I was a bad kid. I mean, I was the guy that was sitting, I went to a Catholic school because I could play sports, and I was sitting next to the teacher. I was that guy. Or they would have me at the office because I'm always clowning around, just barely getting by in class. But it was around the time when the computers just started coming up, and they had them in school. People didn't really know what they were. I mean, of course, the teachers are saying, here, learn how to code this, learn how to do this. We're just playing games on them, like bouncing a ball back and forth with two things going up and down.
Playing Oregon Trail, man. I was all about Oregon Trail back in the day.
Yes, Oregon Trail, stuff like that. And I'm thinking in my head, like, once I got my teacher one computer teacher in high school used to always say, learn this. He used to be like, if you don't learn this, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be behind. You're going to be behind, or you could be ahead. Which one is it? Learn it. And we used to be like, man, forget that. But then when we seen like that day when the boom just hit, and then you see all these people with these companies, Microsoft, all that just pops out of nowhere, and you see the boom in it. I just didn't want to be around them. I wanted to go lay it down. I wanted to go lay in the bed for a couple of days, draw the shades, and just suck my thumb. Like, you idiot! This man was telling you over and over and over and over and over again, learn this, and I didn't want to do any of that. So, and we were that part of that group. If we would have sat down and learned it and did like a lot of people like Zuckerberg, like when you had all your friends in the basement, if you guys did something constructive, you'd be millionaires by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but here's the thing. the thing too is though, and this is why I remind myself constantly of, it's not too late at all, because this thing is a little baby. Like, it's just getting rolling. We're only like, what, 96?
So like 20
So
years?
we're only like 23 years into it. Like, and that's like 96, I think, is when dial-up like really started getting
like
big.
mainstream,
American Online.
and like a lot of people, like basically the consumer had access to the internet, the majority.
And it's gonna keep changing.
Dude, it's gonna get so crazy.
Growing.
It's gonna get so crazy. And I think the most important thing is, because I was obsessed for a while with just getting really good at understanding social media and stuff like that. But really, they're just platforms for people, just for like your personality. I think the real thing there is like what this whole creating superheroes thing that I have is like, you gotta have something, you gotta have a purpose. And if you're helping people with a purpose and you're trying to make an impact in somebody else's life, then whatever you're doing is gonna take off. The technology is just like an avenue to use, right?
You just gotta adjust,
because I don't know how to build websites from scratch or code or anything, that stuff. So my brother-in-law, he's like a whiz at that sort of stuff. But I mean, there's a certain kind of person that's good at that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
a certain kind. It's a niche. It's definitely a niche.
Well, I mean,
definitely a niche.
If you're one of those people that are in that mindset too, then it's of course going to be a lot easier. I think you're right. It does take a special person, I think, at the mental level to want to do that. They have to be like almost like, I feel like they have to be like in a box in a way. I don't know how to really describe it. It's like a weird
blinders on.
Yeah, exactly right. Like they just, nothing can distract them from what they're doing, because they can do monotonous, tedious tasks like it's nothing. That's what they have to have. But I wanted to go back to like the original apex of the question that I was at, where I was saying, so you said it was a progress or a process, right? You're still going through it, right? But there wasn't like a point where like I don't know if it would be the turning point. Like, could you just find that part, like almost? I guess there's moving toward that.
Yeah, there's a couple turning points. My wife Nini, I met her when I was like 24, I think, and we hit it off. And she had a different look on life, right? And this isn't a knock on anybody that I've ever grown up with, or my parents, or anything like that. But I never had anybody who had like, it's like they've never had like a purpose or direction or a drive for anything. It was like, oh yeah, we're just hanging out, we're watching movies. I've watched, like, I don't watch movies anymore because I've watched a billion movies. I get it. I get what movies do. Like,
beginning, middle, end, you understand it.
I'm done with it. I spent so much time on it. And so Nini, like, she had a very positive, uplifting outlook on life. And I never really had that. So that kind of got me rolling with her, and that gave me a little spark. And then, I guess the next big leap would have been, well, I started working out. My dad was a bodybuilder. My brother was a power lifter, and they got me working out right around the same time, around 23. So exercise started to help me out. And then what happened was, well, I had Max, really. Yeah. I think I had Max 5 years ago. That was kind of the point where I was like, oh man, like I gotta do something. I have a kid. I don't want Max to look at me in 20 years or 15 or 10, whenever he like realizes, oh, dad's not superhero dad. Yeah. He's like just a dude, and he wasted his life.
Like, it happens. It happens.
And
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I like that story. I like that story because I like the idea of being the person that you wish, that you would want, that you could be. Yeah, or so to speak, and recognizing that from like your son's perspective in a couple of years, where you could say, oh my goodness, you don't want him to think that way. You want to be like, wow, like my dad's so great and he's got this going. And then not just that, but also he can look at that and say, I want to do something, bigger or better or whatever, just so you can help him get to that apex or whatever, because my parents were always supportive of me, but they have no clue about any of the stuff I'm doing. And that's in it for me as someone, I look at my dad, because he's a trash man, hardworking man, one of the hardest working men in my life. He's a great big inspiration to me. But the problem is when someone like that, they're constantly working, they don't get to live their dreams, versus my mother, who she's raised me and taken care of me, and she's working at basically at a paper plant, right? Or a production factory for like notebooks and stuff. And when you have that, and I look at it like I'm not in that situation, and I just want to do better and bigger things than that, and and basically almost in a way redeeming the lives that they couldn't live because they were raising me, or they had their own interests or what have you. But you know, those kind of things. And I want to try and set a better example for myself and also live for that. So it's
yeah, dude. Well, the thing is, the internet is the thing, right? Because I think if your parents, my parents, any of our parents would have had the internet when they were coming up, they would have lived totally different lives. Like, we're just figuring this thing out because it's so new and things are changing so fast. But if you get on the right track, like, man, I guess going back to what I was saying a second ago, like, I always wanted to be in broadcasting. So I always loved broadcasting. I don't know what that was about broadcasting. I always wanted to be in it. I was like always, when I grew up, I was scared of everything. I was a really shy kid, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. And that was just kind of my whole life. So I think I got into broadcasting as like a way of breaking that. Like, you kind of hide behind the microphone when you're on the radio kind of thing. Because radio DJs are usually pretty messed up. Like, we have like this narcissistic ego personality. It's pretty.
I know, we see that
across
Rob.
the board, but
wait, I like how you speak. Yeah, Rob. Yeah, I was saying you said
well,
you're pretty
there's a
messed up.
personality. There's a personality test called the DISC test, right? So DISC, and I'm like 98% I, which is individualistic. So it means that I like doing what I like to do, and I'm only going to be able to create from what I want to create, right? So I didn't take that test until like 2 years ago, but it explained a lot of my life because I didn't have enough self-confidence to go do what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do what anybody else wanted to do because I had this like thing where I wanted to do my own thing. So I had like this turbulence, I guess. And once I balanced that out, and now I see, like, you know, because when you're growing up, the flaws that you have are usually something that you can use to your advantage if you figure out how to.
Right.
You know, but you end up using them for the wrong thing. So that was kind of a wake-up call for me. And Joe, you know, honestly, Joe Rogan's podcast, one of the things that happened to me was when I was growing up, I always had this thought in my head, like, oh man, I'm going to do something great one day, but I'm going to wait on it. I procrastinated all the time. Constant procrastinator. So it was always like, you know, one day you're going to do something awesome, dude, but it's not going to be today. That's for sure. Because today you're going to sit around and smoke weed and not do anything.
That's
like
what I
that.
say.
But you're on the side of you're on the side of this normal spectrum up to that point. I think technology is going to change that age because they say you screw off all through your 20s until you're 30. You said when you have max, that would be around like 30, right?
31, yeah,
31. So in that time, you're going to actually make that and say, I got to buckle down right now and bust my ass through the 30s.
Yeah,
and then do that. And I'm sure he probably had a big influence in that. But I'm thinking like now the technology is gonna bump that back for your son. I got a grandkid right now, so I got a 1-year-old grandkid. So by the time she gets up to that point, I think it's all gonna be pushed back to, like they say, 40 is the new 30 or whatever. For people to actually buckle down and get what they're doing, I think it's going to be pushed back to 20 here with how technology moves and how you can get to your goals faster.
Right. And there's no reason it can't be. The only reason, like this whole thing about your 20s, you're supposed to party, figure it out. And I think that's for some people, right? But I think if I would have had somebody grab me by the shirt when I was like 15 and be like, dude, wake up, and like wake me up and like teach me a bunch of stuff, I would have not done half the stuff I did. But there was just nobody around to do that.
Oh, bro, I had it. I had it from my mom, the law, everybody was taking me back.
And Coach didn't listen.
Some people are just meant to go some routes. Yeah. Some people are meant to go this way, this time. I don't really I think the people that are, are, to me, like looking back on it, what we just mentioned before, you look at somebody that maybe went after their dreams when they were in high school. Like, I think up here, this is a perfect plug for them. The program. What is it? The Young Entrepreneur Program or something?
Yeah, Young Entrepreneurs Academy. Yeah.
Academy, where they have they're building entrepreneurs out of the schools now. I love that idea because you're putting them on that track. Now they got a shot to go be great. They don't have to do the same old thing, go to college, go into debt, go be great. So I think people are just meant, but I'd imagine that they would have to turn down 50 people because they just don't have it. They have the idea, but they don't have the drive and to get to that one. So I just think certain people are meant to take certain paths because that way they'll have a scale to say, okay, now we can have some information to give to other people so they can get on the right path.
Yeah, I agree, dude. There's there's a reason for it too, right? Like you wouldn't have us like I feel like I have a good story now because I wasted such a long time. I have perspective on that where I could like talk to somebody and it would help. It helps to frame like a man. You don't have to waste all that time if you don't want to. If you find the right people and do the right stuff, you can like still party and have fun and be who you want to be, but also be successful. Yeah, and have discipline. That's one of the biggest.
That's what I like to do. That's why I like what I do as a coach. I'm able to point out the mistakes, and we have a lot of success stories. When I get somebody in my inbox that I coached off into college or got, took a better path in life, and they're saying, hey, thanks for this because this is the reason why I took this path instead of that because of those some words. So I totally understand like those type things. Looking back, I just feel like that's my calling at this point. Now that I'm at this point in life and my kids are grown up, everything's out of the way, I made my mistakes. Now it's time for me to chase something like this, which is a story that I get to tell when I'm like ready to retire. And it's another bag too, because you can take all that information, put it in a book or whatever the technology is that time, and you can put it out there and sell it and maybe inspire some more people and still bring some money in.
That's the real key. If you can inspire other people and get paid to do it, like that's the key. And then that can just kind of go from person to person. I mean, everybody can learn something from somebody else. Like there's so much opportunity with that. It's crazy. That's how things should be. That's how it should roll.
Yeah, and I was going to say bridging the gap here because you guys are talking like, you guys at your younger ages, your 20s, you weren't maybe listening to people. But I think where I'm at now, where I'm trying to help chase dreams and everything at a young age, I'm pretty much a clean cut dude, when it comes to that. I joke around and say that I'm snorting crack off a stripper's ass in the back room or something crazy. But I never would do any of that stuff. But, I just like to make jokes about it.
Right.
Maybe. But anyway, as I was saying I make jokes about it. I'm very clean cut, but I always listen to people. For as much as I talk a lot. I just always listen to people. Like I remember just taking car rides with my dad and he would be telling me stories about the taxes and presidents and politics, right? He'd just be telling me this stuff, right? And he'd be sitting there thinking like, are you bored about it? And I'd be like, no. And I'd ask him like 50 more questions. Like, well, how does this work? And how does that work? And understanding this. And of course, I'm always constantly learning. I remember whenever I would not know the answer to something, a lot of times I would go look at it. I was like, I need to know what the answer is to this particular thing. And I remember from a young age too, in high school and so many things, I didn't have a lot of friends. So I found myself just wanting to, just read books and just be alone by myself, reading a book about dinosaurs. And I didn't like Harry Potter. I didn't like fiction. I liked nonfiction stuff. And those things were the things that interested me. But I found myself really enjoying bringing people together towards my later years in high school because I just liked listening and talking to people, like saying what I had to say and sharing information that I've learned. Because whenever you're the person who sits back in the room and is just listening to everything that's going on, you can make very informed opinions, unbiased opinions on what should be done in a particular situation. I used to be like essentially a counselor for people because people would come talk to me because I didn't talk to anybody else. Right? I was a loner, a loser basically at my beginning stages of middle school. They would come to me because I would say something like, even though they bullied me, I would still talk to them, be like, yeah, like this is what I think you should do. This is a situation and like I said, I would listen to what these people had to say and just take all that in. I was just a sponge. And I think that's so critical for people nowadays is just to take in information and also know that you could be wrong about something. And then proving that you can be, because without this process, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. I'd still be the person who's out at the party, who would be, drinking. Like I have friends that are out, smoking weed, doing all that junk, and just living their 20s, I guess. And they don't have a clue. Like, I have conversations with them. They don't have a clue where they're going, no idea of a direction or where they even want to go. And I don't know, like for me, that's a scary place to be at 20. You don't have any clue where you're even going to be in 10 years. 5 years.
Yeah. Well, you just don't think about it. You just drown it out with noise to try to block out the thought of of what's going to happen. But the thing is, man, like, so see, where you're coming up right now, because I wish that I was, it'd be awesome to be 22 right now, right? Because you came up when I was a kid, like I was 9-10 years old. I would do a pretend radio show in my bedroom. So I played 2 CD players and like pretend that I was the DJ. Like you couldn't do that in 1993. It wasn't possible. But like now, if I was 10, I could have a full-blown podcast, radio show, vlog in my bedroom.
Right there.
And dude, that's the thing is like that never it just didn't exist. So now, if you want to do that, you can just go do that. Like if you're obsessed with it, like I can tell you're obsessed with it. That's what's awesome. Like I just get obsessed with it and just dive in and start doing it. So when I got into radio, it was like I just didn't have any, nobody had ever done anything, right? And even though they were in radio, nobody like was a star in radio or anything like that. So no, there was no direction or anything like that. And I think I just kind of floated around, just not understanding the value of what it was, of what I could do with it, I guess.
Yeah,
Of course there's like big time legendary great DJs like Howard Stern, but there's not many who were like legendary radio DJs. So I just kind of followed the path of what everybody else did. And looking back on it, that's great now because I have 20 years in broadcasting that I can use as I understand what has happened to that industry and what it looks like. I want to take it to a new level and add all these different things to it. I look at social media as like, it's like an adapter. You can attach it to anything and it makes that thing more awesome. So if you're trying to sell radio, like advertising, it's hard to sell radio advertising because nobody really needs it necessarily. You can't see results really well. There's not specific results.
There's no
you throw
analytics.
social media on there. Yeah, you throw social media attached to it. Now you have video attached and you can see results, and it just makes everything make a lot more sense. I'm happy that I grew up in the going through that experience because it brought me to like this moment now where I see a pretty clear vision for what to do.
That brings up valid too. That's something I wanted to get into too, because the power of what social media actually is. So over the weekend, I'm not sure if everybody's seen it. If your timeline's anything close to mine, you've seen the chicken sandwich wars last week. Did everybody see the chicken sandwich?
Popeyes and Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the power of that, it came out, was reported that we don't know how true it is, but I'm sure it's pretty true. I don't know about the exact number, but Popeye said it saved $23 million that they would have had to spend in ad placement because the war of that and all the people, like the war that went on with Chick-fil-A and Popeyes going at it. They said as much business that we did, we would have had to spend $23 million in ad revenue to get that business. So the power of social media is there. It is strong. You just got to find, like we're saying, like now, like me and Dev, like I always looked at it and I said, okay, I got to find somebody that's willing to dive into it. Dev's willing to dive into it. He's younger. He's going to be up on the trends. So he's going to hook me up with those things, and I'll have the experience of certain things that we can mesh together and use that power and find a niche and do exactly what you're saying. What to do is find a way to make that thing work for you. And I just love doing these type things, like creating things and creating messages that either inspire, either help people understand people from different backgrounds, ages, races, creeds, religion, whatever it is, that you guys can still, like you said, you can learn something from somebody. Dev said it too. And then like when we walk into a room for a meeting or anything, you got to say, I know you can admit this, Rob. How are these two standing here next to each other? How did they meet? We get the same question.
It's a good question. It just creates a question right off the bat. Yeah, for sure.
It's an icebreaker. So
I want to say two things. One, Rachel has joined the chat and she says, "Hi guys, how's it going?" That's Rachel Lingenfelder.
What's going on, Rachel?
Hey Rachel, what's up?
But and also too, I and Coach has taught me a lot. This is that bridging the gap moment where I had to say, like thanks to him, because the things that I have been lacking would have been the guidance. He's been a great motivator to get me to the place I'm at with his experience, and also he's kind of pushed me as a coach would, because that's how we met through the semi-pro football. But he's pushed me because I used to, like I said, not be not able to approach people, but approach them in a public setting to go get what I wanted. He's like, if you want to go find something, you need to go talk to these people. You need to go find these people. And that's how it's been recently, is like, because I've met him and because we're on this grind and this journey with Bridging the Gap and creating our media company, Mediated Media, I've met and talked to so many awesome people that I thought I would never talk to just because of this cat, because he'd be like, well, we got to go talk to these people. We're in offices and meeting rooms and boardrooms and wherever, and we're like, oh, hey, how's it going, dude? And you never think we'd be there. Yeah, like you're talking to people and you're like, wow, like I didn't even know this is what you do. And you're like, yeah.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Let me say one thing on that. Is like, it's perspective. And I feel this what happened to me when I left radio, and this is like I don't know, because I jumped out of an industry that I had been in at the same job for a long time, right? So I was around the same people every day, same conversations, same friends, same circle. Everything was the same. And I thought, like, man, Altoona, this town is we're all losers here. I included myself in that list.
Right.
Like, we don't do anything. Nobody wants to make anything happen. I'm just gonna float through life and whatever. None of that mattered. And then I jumped out and I started to create this. Well, I didn't just jump out. I joined Ty Lopez's 67-step program, then the social media marketing agency, and that kind of got my feet wet with like how to do marketing online and got me out of my job. But that in itself, taking that risk over the past 2.5 years, I have a whole new perspective on our area, because I met so many people who also wanted to create things and do something different, and like weren't just talking about doing the thing, and weren't just like they were doing it. They were, even if it wasn't working all the time, they were doing it, tweaking it, learning, experimenting, growing. And you know, it's all in the perspective of how you're looking at your life. And that for the past 2.5 years have opened my eyes up to that in kind of a crazy way, because the same way with you, Devin, like I've met so many awesome people, gotten side by side with so many awesome people that I never thought I'd be around or, you know, learn from, just be able to be in the same space. And then when you are there, you realize, oh, wow, it's not that much different than me. They just grind harder. They have more discipline. They are in their zone. So when I'm talking about like creating superheroes, like they're using their superpower, whatever that is, that thing that like they are good at, that they don't even have to try to do well. They just do it. And when you find those people who are just doing their thing and they're doing it well, it looks so effortless. You're like, oh man, this is there for anybody. We all have that possibility. You just have to switch your perspective on what you're doing and have a different view of what's going on around you, because there's so many, especially, and this is probably because of the internet too. I imagine if I was in the same situation 30 years ago, I wouldn't be experiencing this the same way. But the internet has brought so much information into the world that people from Altoona, Pennsylvania, we couldn't have received that information. You'd have to go to the library and read 1,000 books and find a mentor somewhere who's going to teach you all this stuff. It's just, I feel super lucky, and like it's just awesome to be in America, which I still think is, I've never been to many other countries besides Canada. So I don't know how great other countries are, but it's pretty great here, man. Like we can do whatever the hell we want, and you can make as much money as you want.
Making it great again. It's good now. Let's keep making
it never got worse. I mean, it's all perspective, right? So somebody could see, some people do see this country as shit, as it's done, as it's fallen apart, as this is the worst it's ever been. Like that's just nuts. Like it's just crazy.
Insanity. Yeah. I always joke around.
I think it's just it's just what's happening is a victim of the technology also. It's always been happening. You're just seeing it faster. You don't have just 3 channels on the news, like World News, NBC, all that, giving you the information. You can actually see everybody's walking around. They are reporters. They can put that out and you can see, and you're just getting it rushed at you at all times instead of these news channels deciding what you get to see. So that's all that I see it as, because if you look at the statistics, you do the math, you look at the statistics, if you believe in that process of analytics and all that, it's no difference. There's no big, huge anything that's different. There's a lot of injustices and a lot of rights that need to be validated and need some laws to change and make some changes in the government to move forward with some things, of course. But no, it's a great place. You can do what you want. You just got to change your perspective. It's not the goal. I see a lot of people in my lifetime that give up on goals, but it's not the goal to give up on. It's your approach, your perspective. Change the direction to go attack it. Get around some people. Go look for information that you don't have, because everybody I know, I like to think it sometimes. I got to constantly tell myself, oh, wait a minute, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Stop, listen, or go seek the information and humble yourself and get that. That's just a lot of the things why people can't get where they're going. and get any growth, in my opinion, is that they give up on things because, one, it's either too hard, or two, their ego is too big and they can't learn anything outside of their normal learning habits.
Yeah, and they don't have anybody showing them what to do either, right? I think about this all the time, man. It blows my mind. And maybe you guys are different, but like I didn't have I'm trying to like think like who throughout my life could I have been like, hey man, show me how to like make $1 million, or show me how to start a business, or show me anything like that. I'm like, there's got to be more people who are jumping out being like, listen, let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to create this thing. Like, even just like to have discipline. Like let me show you just how to have some discipline. Let me just instill some like real practical things into your life that there's this awesome book called The Slight Edge. So The Slight Edge is like, it's very simple, but it really, it's one of the first books that I read about 5 years ago when I started reading books besides high school, when I like actually reading books.
Wait. Did you just say 5 years ago when I actually started reading books? So what were you doing? Just skimming through them? You were doing the finger thing? Like,
oh, when I used to read, I don't think I ever, besides Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography, and some wrestling books, I don't think I ever read a book
I'm sorry,
front to back and paid attention to it.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's such an obscure book.
What, the Schwarzenegger?
I just thought it was funny because it was like, I was expecting you to say like some, like, I don't know, like I literally, that was the last book. That was the last book I thought you would say.
That was one book I read in my 20s. I've always loved Schwarzenegger. He's like one of my biggest heroes. Like the way that the vision that guy had and what he created is just, and plus the 80s action movies. I mean, my God, man, just some of my favorite movies of all time. So, and my dad always loved him too. But just the way that book, I read it in like my mid 20s, and I can remember like from the time I graduated until I was 30, I never read a book besides that for like that whole period of time. And then
that's interesting.
And when you sit down to start reading books, it's like, it hurts. It's like you can't retain any information. Your eyes won't stay on the page. So when I started reading this book, The Slight Edge, it was like, it's all about these daily disciplines, simple daily disciplines, like simple little things you do every single day that if you don't do them, doesn't really matter. If you do them, it doesn't really matter. But over time, the direction that it sends you is astronomical. It's crazy. It was like you can like branch off in two separate, complete opposite 90-degree angle directions just because of like doing these simple things that keep you on task with your life. And I was like, man, that's some powerful stuff.
Is it now a slight edge? Does it mean like you get a slight edge?
Yeah, it's just like a slight edge. Like it's just a little bit of every day you have a little bit more of an edge because you do these things. So for me, like an example is like I read 10 pages a day. It's not like I don't read tons of books. Like it takes me a while to get through one, but I'll read 10 pages a day. Just get through that. I take a cold shower every morning because I just want to wake up and be like energized.
Yeah. Let's go.
So I do that and I'm like, I don't want to do it. And usually you don't want to do those things until you do them like 1,000 times. Then you are okay with it. But in the beginning, you're like, man, like right now, I'm trying to wake up earlier and earlier. I want to be able to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning because The Rock wakes up at like 4 a.m.
Why? So you just want to wake up at 4:30 just because The Rock wakes up at 4:30?
Dude, because he gets stuff done. He wakes up early and gets things done. Because people like, your parents probably always said like, there's always somebody like, oh, nothing good happens after midnight. It's like kind of true. Like nothing really does happen.
Right.
But you have all of your energy in the morning, and we usually wake up and feel groggy. Like I want to wake up and shoot out of bed like a rocket. Like that's my goal.
And then just smash. You're adding a couple more times to couple more hours to the 9 to 5. Everything's open, everything's moving, hustling, bustling. You're adding a head start while everybody's just barely getting into the 9 o'clock punching time.
And it gives things.
You're up ready to go. Like I get it. I'm up early all the time. I take walks every morning. I've been doing this for the last like 10 years. No matter what time
you wake up.
I get up between 5 and 5:30. No alarm or nothing. I just wake up. Obviously there'll be some times if I went to a wedding, had too much to drink or something, I'm gonna miss that morning or something like that. But if it's
the walk. No,
Yeah,
you
I'm
gotta
gonna miss
take the
the
walk
walk.
of shame. You just gotta just walk
Yeah,
around in like the dirty
That's
tuxedo
the walk you're
with the
taking.
beer stains on it. You just gotta own that. You just gotta own
Yeah, you
that.
gotta own it. You gotta own it. But yes, it definitely brings in a whole different, like I have a whole different perspective when I'm out walking around and there's nothing going on. The birds haven't even came out yet, started chirping in the summer, and you feel some different kind of energy, and then
it gives you an advantage, man.
Yes, it gives me, my mind gets clear. And I use that as my meditation. And then I do little things like you said, like my mom always taught me this. Don't never get out of your bed without making it. Don't leave out of without. So I always get up and make it right away. Like get it all set. I'm like half groggy, like tripping over things and falling. Like I never, it takes me a minute, but I get it done and I'm like, okay, I accomplished something for the day. So I totally get that. I think those are the type of things that do build winners because you're preparing yourself. You're like I said to Dev, like I'm sure you have this too. Like I know now, like I told Dev, like let's start really working on scheduling. We already know every Monday without even thinking we have to shoot the show at 9:00.
Yeah,
it's just a habit.
We wake up and it's like Mondays. It's like bridging the gap day.
Right. So those little things like build that. Like I know, like every morning, I'm making my bed. Going for my walk, I'm clearing my mind, I'm getting prepared, and I'm building off of the goal sheet or what's on the whiteboard, what has to be done, and I'm doing that without no distraction, no phone, no nothing. I'm just taking that 20-minute walk, getting cleared. Okay, now let's go take on the day.
Yeah, so, that's what should be taught in school. That sort of stuff.
Yeah,
like dude, that's the most. When I started doing that kind of stuff, and I changed my morning routine. Like I've changed it so many times. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing more important than that morning routine. Like if I hit it right in the sweet spot, dude, I have the best day. You know what I mean? It's like if you wake up and just start, because it's all about accomplishment. If I think every human, like the reason we end up just playing like hours and hours of video games is because we know we have to accomplish something, but if we just delay the inevitable long enough, it's gonna feel good until a certain point where we mess it up because we procrastinated too long. But if you can get things done right away, then you can screw off the rest of the day. Yeah, that's kind of like where I want to get to is like I want to have days where I wake up and everything I'm doing is work, but also not work. It's like I'm having time, but I'm also getting stuff done, and I want to like live in that zone. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in that zone?
Yeah,
but that's
really.
That's cool.
That's the goal.
And I don't know. I think there's we always talk about the misconception of my generation where. I think, well, not just my generation, but people in general think, you have to go to school. There's just one way you have to do everything. There's just certain ways to get to success, and those are the only ways to get there. And I just think that there, with the world we live in now, with all the information we have, with the climate, and also too understanding that the people next to you, and that's one of the reasons why we start bridging the gap is because. In the social media era, a lot of us aren't social anymore. Like we're not like when we walk down the street. Look down at the phone, act like you didn't see the person, or whatever. And
dude, I saw somebody riding their bike the other day on their phone. I was like, what the hell is that, man? Like riding a bicycle, like texting. I'm like, that's
texting like this, looking down.
Ridiculous. Like how? Two hands, no hands on the bike. They were texting, ride the bike. I was like, why?
That's where it's at right now nowadays. That's where it's at.
And and knowing that you can talk to the person who's right next to you, and like I said, to me, that's been one of the biggest differences I've been learning is that if it's all, really is. They say it's all about who you know, and I think it is. You got to get to know people. You have to work with the people around you because there's this. I think what is maybe I call it the Drake me or the Drake all me mentality. That song by Drake came out said all me. All me for real. They made that song, even though like Drake, he had a whole squad of people around him that have built that guy and helped him get to where he's supposed to be and where he's at. So people fall for this narrative, like I'm gonna work and grind and get there myself. Like no, you have to because you lack things. We all lack things, and we have.
It makes
to have
me confused. When he made that makes that song, that confuses me. Like I don't get the whole all me thing because he knows it's not.
It's a hype track. That's all it is.
Well, it's one of those things where we know all music is selling a fantasy and a dream that everybody wants it to be. They want it to be like that. So, but you're going to listen to it and they're going to capitalize it, and they're not going to tell you like it wasn't a big. But this is what I'll give Drake credit for because a lot of people would have got killed when they found out, like their career would have been over. when they found out about that Drake had that whole team of writers and it wasn't him doing that.
Yeah.
He was able, whatever he was able and whatever he puts across to his people, it came to that point where that was not a factor anymore. Yeah. Like it changed the whole game where everybody used to hide that. It'd be ghostwriters. Now they're just like, it's whatever. Look at Cardi B. She don't care. She'll tell you, everybody's writing this, but I'm cashing checks and I'm being successful or whatever.
And she's giving them a job. The people who write songs, I guess they get a job. Like they have a talent for writing music and they just can't sing, and they're like, or they can't perform it. They're like, well, let's give it to someone to perform it.
Let's make money together. So it just goes to, and you got to have a certain personality to pull that off. You got to be your work or however you prepared yourself, whatever you decided to bring in and take. So we got to give that credit to some people because you got to be able to pull it off. Now, if you could do it for longevity like they're doing, like Drake is doing right now, you can't do nothing but salute them. I don't even hate on it. And you know me, Dev, I'm critical when it comes to like raps and all that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Very critical, so I get it. So I just let it pass. So
it is. It's. I guess it's disappointing in a certain way, but whenever you own it, it's like
if you own it, hey, live your truth. I respect anybody that lives their truth. Like I had a conversation with my cousin one day, and he was like, because we had this old guy on our block. He's been there for years since we were kids. He's just a grumpy old guy. He'd say things that were borderline racist. You know what I mean? You're like, is this guy, but he always said what was on his mind. Like he wasn't holding back. It didn't matter who came around. Didn't matter. He wasn't scared. Nobody was going to hurt him or not. We were just like, you're just a grumpy old man, that type thing. Always been like that. But he always said his mind. And if you went over there and you talked to him in a manner like it, because it was mostly like we would walk by and like maybe drop something in front of his yard, and he would just say some off the wall things. So we just get away from him. But if you went and talked to him and had a conversation with him, and then you would get who he really was. But he was really standing up for himself, saying, you kids ain't going to come around here acting and tearing up my stuff. That's basically what the point was. But He was never saying that. He was just saying crazy stuff out of his mouth. But once you got to talk to him, you got the edge to it. So I told him I totally respect it after I learned to talk to him. And now he does it a different way. As he's getting older, now he maybe pays some kids to clean up the yard because he can't do it as much no more. Now he's just a staple in the neighborhood. So it's just those type of things right there that I think that people they miss out on that opportunity because they think somebody is one way without it really getting to know them and not understanding that people are going through a lot of things. I mean, some things you can't excuse. Like to me, when I see somebody do something out of pocket in my face, I don't like it. I'm going to ask them what the problem is. Like, what is the real issue that you're doing this? Yeah, you can't talk to somebody like that, or you can't do that to somebody. And then when they find and then I find it many times that they keep doing it because nobody says anything. They just either do it in an ignorant manner or they just go off the hook without really finding out. Maybe this dude just needed somebody to say, "Hey, man, it's all right, calm down." You know what I mean?
Tell the guy to say, like, "Be quiet, bro. You're all right. Like, it'll be cool."
Well, that's the thing, with that is because I thought that my whole life, and I hated being around people like that. I was always like, God, man, I would get stuck around these people who are just negative, and why does this happen to me? It's like you have a choice to get away from anybody you want to get away. I mean, until you're 18, then you kind of have a situation there. If you don't like your home life, that's a whole different thing. But like, you have a decision. You can just get away from people. You don't have to stay around them. There's nothing forcing you to do that. And man, just so many people live their whole life in that cycle, and it's amazing that you can spend 80 years and never like have a real conversation. Devin, like you were saying about, like, I love podcasting. One of the reasons I really love podcasting, I love having conversations with people. And I like, when else do you sit down and uninterrupted engage in like full conversation without somebody chiming in, a phone ringing, whatever goes on? Like, conversations never get this far. So whenever you are trying to get to know somebody or understand somebody, like, dude, how could you ever get to understand somebody if you only if they're only ever like, if the old guy's yelling at you, like, you're never gonna get to know him unless you actually sit down and talk to him for a couple of minutes and spend half an hour or whatever with him. And one more thing I was gonna say was that, like, one of the best things I ever heard that really helped me put a lot of that in perspective is you really could be anybody living their life if you were born in their situation. You might not look exactly like them or whatever, but if somebody is nuts or they're just a narcissist, or they're always trying to screw somebody else over, or they're always blaming somebody else, they're a victim, whatever that is, or if they're violent or whatever, like if you were born in their situation, lived in their environment, you probably would have ended up like them too. You just got you got a different draw, like that's it.
I believe that I don't believe you. I believe you're a product of your environment, and until you decide to make that change. I don't think nobody should use that as an excuse, but like when you're going to be a certain way if you grow up in a certain environment, because it's just the way it's going to happen. And then when you get to that certain part, either you're going to change or you're going to go down with the ship.
Yeah,
because
here's sorry, are you done, Coach?
Go ahead.
Cut you off.
No,
all I was
go
going to say is, I think what it boils down to when it comes to those conversations, when you talk about people, and you get understanding and you get sympathy to the point until you understand your actions and you know that you can either A, do better, or B, basically that you can do better, or because once you get to that point, once you get to that point, because you can't feign ignorance anymore. You can't say, oh, I just don't know any better. Oh, this is how I raised. In certain situations, Josh, you're absolutely right, because it's hard to get out of that situation. But if you're going to be a person who decides to be that person, right? Like you were treated poorly to be the victim. If you spend your life being the victim, and I said, and I will always show sympathy and understanding. But if you want to improve upon your life, no one's going to ever just do that for you and like carry you to the steps where you need to be to get. You have to get there yourself. It's just harder for you. And like I said, I understand that. I always show sympathy to that. But I've had many people who have had trouble past in life, and I'm a person who likes to help people and conversate people and bring people together. And whenever you find yourself having these conversations with people, you can look at them, you can give them all the information and all the care that they could possibly need. But at the end of the day, it's like the horse to water. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, and that's the truth. For anybody of any background, like I said, we all have struggles. Like I said, grew up in a single family household. We didn't have much. I didn't ask my mom for much. And, we often sometimes probably lived paycheck to paycheck. And, that was my reality. Yeah, and I lived in stressful environments, all kinds of junk, whatever. Didn't have a lot of friends, but I just tried to make the best of it, and also internalize and say, well, how can I make a better version of me? Not looking at everybody else and say, well, what am I doing wrong to slight these people? Rather than looking inside and saying, how can I be the better part? How do I like myself more?
Yeah, I think a lot of my life, what happened to me was somebody would act a certain way to me, and I would embody that as like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. That was like my personality type. Like if somebody was being whatever way to me, I would think like, oh, that's something that I did. And I don't know why that's my personality. That's just how it is. But recognizing it helped a lot, because I was like, oh, dude, these people, anybody who's being shitty to you, who's acting a certain way to you that doesn't make any sense.
Their issue.
It's their problem. Just get away from them. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to worry about it. Just get the hell out. Like, just get away. As fast as you can.
Have you ever read The Four Agreements?
Oh, yeah, dude. I love The Four Agreements.
Excellent book. That's what it is in there. Like I that is one of my ones that I always pull out. They got the fifth one out, the fifth one too. And I always pull that one out every probably couple of months and just read through it. It's an easy, quick read too. You can do that in a quick amount of time, a couple of days if you really want to. Yeah. And it that point right there is like that. It's not my issue when people are acting that way. And I think people are with a compassion, because I'm a very compassionate, I'm tough, but I'm fair. But I'm very compassionate to people. But I learned a long time ago that like everybody can't, you can't take on everybody as pain. They're going to have to realize, you can tell them and say that. But like you said, you got some people you just got to get away from and say, that's not my issue. That's them. That's just period. That's them. Because you obviously you want to make sure it's not. I will always say if I did something wrong, I'm gonna admit that I did it wrong. I might not admit it that second. I might have to think about it for a minute. But I always come back and say, yo, man, I was wrong. That was stupid. What I said or whatever I did, I was wrong. And some people just can't do that. And so when I find out, yo, this is not my fault, you're right. It's them. I can't be around people that's like that. That they find every way to complain, make excuses, look for the easy way, or look to get over on somebody. I can't have nothing to do with that. And I totally agree with you. Like, you just got to get away from people like that and let them learn. I mean, even if I cut myself off from family members, even hurtful as that is, but if you want to grow, you can't, there's nothing you can do with people that just don't want to change.
Yeah. And it's not, it's probably like, do they not want to change? Like, change is just uncomfortable and it hurts. It's like, it's like when I lifted weights, I was heavy into lifting weights for about a decade. Right. And it reminded me of something, because Schwarzenegger would talk about it a lot. Like, it's a lot like growing is just like lifting weights. Like, you break something down, so you got to build it back up. And that's the only way to do it. And that's just a law of the universe. It's not a law of like your muscles. It's a law of everything. So you got to work on something, chisel it, and break it down to a certain spot, and then it gets better. But until you do that, it's never going to get better. So if you want change, you're going to go through some pain, and it's going to suck.
And but you got to unlearn things.
Once you accept that, once you accept, like, I'm going to have to unlearn this stuff, it's going to be difficult, then you start to enjoy it. So I think that's the point. This momentum is so important, because this going back to this book, The Slight Edge, like, they talk about momentum in life, and like, when your momentum's in a certain direction, it's like turning the cruise ship, right? Like, turning the cruise ship on a dime is impossible. Like, that thing takes a long time to come around. And that's just how any sort of change is. Like, you better be prepared for the journey, because that's when you look back on it. And this is just from reading a bunch of other people's books and some experience of my own. But that journey is always going to be more important than the finish, because there's never going to be a finish line. Right. So, and if there is, you're going to be bored as hell, and you're going to need a new finish line.
Right. You got to keep pushing that back.
So, like, that's why retirement's so ridiculous. Like, retire from what?
Right.
Just sit around? Like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do.
Wait to die? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Like, oh, I'm 60 now. I got, roughly, based upon averages, I got 20 more years. You know what I mean? I've been alive for 20 years, just a little bit over 20 years. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a pretty long time. Like, people always say, like, life's short. And I said, yeah, right. I mean, it is in the hindsight of it,
I think that's the trick of life expectancy too.
Well, dude, here's the thing. Yeah, like, the longer you live, the faster life goes. And it was explained to me like this, because when you're a baby, you don't have anything to compare time to, right? So when you're 10, when you're 20, you still don't have much to compare time to. But once you're like into your like mid 30s, you can start comparing. I've been alive for this long. So right now I'm 36. 20 years ago, I was 15. 20 years from now, I'm going to be 56. Like, it just makes time go faster, because you can compare it to what has already happened. People always say, oh, time's flying. It seems like time's going faster than it used to. And it's like, I don't hear kids saying that. I just hear old people saying that.
What it is here's my take on it. It's like when you got something, like when you're waiting for something to happen, it just feels like forever, right? And most young people, they're anticipating,
like waiting for Christmas future, morning or something like that.
They're waiting for their futures. They're waiting for their whatever, right? So time just takes forever. It feels like forever. But the older people, they feel like time, because their future is now, and they feel like they're not progressing further in their life. There's nothing to look forward to. You know what I mean? So they're almost like, oh no, I missed this and I missed that.
Right, dude. Yeah.
Look back, and something is, that's what Coach was saying about the mental trick of it. I think what it is you just have to have something you're looking forward to.
Yeah, because think about that.
Because the time will always feel like it's just going slow, because you're just like, we got this thing coming up, and like you're waiting for that time, and it just. And every day you're like waiting for something new to happen. And I think
when you're a kid coming up, you have milestones, right? There's all these milestones, like, you first grade or whatever. You go to junior high, you go to high school, you go to college. I get my driver's license. I can drink now. Like, all these things. You hit like 23 or 24, and it's like, well, get a job. That's it. See you guys. Like, we're done here.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
live life, work until you're 65, and then you can chill out, and then you like, what do I do now? And there's nothing to get you excited and out of bed no more. You're eating dinner at 4:00 in the afternoon, for Pete's sake. Right. Come on, let's go. Yeah, I'm going until they say you can't go no more. We're about to put you in a box. That's when I'm done right there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was gonna say is and also that 9 to 5 life. You work 35 years or whatever for the restaurant or for the whatever industry that you decide that you get into at the entry level or whatever it is, and you get in there, then you're working, and then once you're done, then you retire. The only valuable skill you have asset-wise to you to do anything is just this one particular skill you learned at these particular set of jobs, and it's just so like you said, my summer. This is why I said what I said. This summer I worked all the time. I worked like 5 hour or 5 to 6, 7, 9 days in a row, 12-hour days. It was insanity, right? Complete and utter insanity while on top doing this stuff. And my summer felt like it was just yesterday. It went by so fast. And like I said, oh my God, life's flying before my eyes. And it was because I was constantly doing this thing that, you know, I wasn't looking forward to anything. Oh, I get up, go to work tomorrow. I'll get up, go to work tomorrow, you know? But now, like, when you have this feeling of anticipation, I think, like I said, time slows down for you, just like if you're looking at the clock, because you're not looking at the clock. So I don't know. That's my
routine makes time go fast. When you live in routine, whether it's good or bad, time flies by, dude. It's so true. Yeah. It's like now having this business for the past 2.5 years, I used to just, even in radio, like I was having fun when I was doing my radio show, working for the company I used to work for. But after the radio show was done, time would drag because I had to like do all this stuff I didn't care about.
Tedious work.
Yeah, it's just unnecessary. I mean, it's unnecessary. It's just like anybody could do it, not like anything that was important. And now it's like every day I'm excited / almost impatient. It's like, dude, I just want to get to this. I can't get to these things. There's like so many things I want to do that I'm just excited to get to, and it takes longer to get to them than you want it to. And it's like just a balance, I guess. But my weeks just blow by. My weeks just fly. Like this summer, like you said, dude, my summer flew by, and I'm like, damn, man, summer's over already. But then I look back on what I accomplished, and I did a lot. It just didn't feel like I did because I'm in it, which is good. Like I'm at that period where I'm in it a lot. I'm looking forward to being above it, to where I can see like how the systems work. My mentor Ray, you guys have probably seen him, older bald guy who comes in here.
Yeah, I've seen him once. He came in here with you one time.
So Ray, like, I mean, he's done it all. Dude's been, you know, he's an incredible guy. And when he's talking to me about this kind of stuff, it's all about systems. When you put systems in place in your life and your business, eventually those systems take over, and then you can just follow the system. Instead of you having to create every day and figure out every day, you build the system.
It runs itself.
It runs, and then you just kind of have to follow it. So, and I'm learning that now. I've got a couple of my days systemized, other days not so much. But I notice when I do follow the system, my stress level's super low, and my day, it just feels like I'm on point. When I'm like struggling to figure it out and like piecing it together, my day's a mess, and I need to take a nap at 2 p.m. Like,
take a nap. That's like the go-to.
Are you in there with the on-air sign over at the Catalyst space and the on-air sign, but you're really in there crashed out? You can admit it sometimes, bro.
I have been, yeah. Or I'm meditating, one of the two. I'm either sleeping out.
You're like those days you have on-air on, you're just like, really, it's like, everybody shut the hell up so I can take a nap. Is that what it really is?
I'm just trying to take a nap. Yeah. Shh, be quiet. I'm on air. Taking a nap.
We just listen for you to start talking. We're like, okay, he's talking now. Okay, you know, like, we'll be quiet.
Yeah, well, the thing I've learned is like, it doesn't even microphones. If you have a good microphone, it doesn't even pick up ambient noise. Maybe like a little bit, but like you can't hear anything, so it doesn't matter really. And it's not as when I worked in radio, especially, we had, you know, really, I guess, professional radio booths, and somebody would talk outside of the room. I could hear them talking, my mic couldn't hear them talking. You know, so there's certain things like that. But
it picks up a nice crisp. What the on-air sign's really for is, you know, like, don't barge in here and be like, hey, how's it going? And you're like live recording something, like someone's on the phone. You're like, well, dude, you just screwed up my whole set, and I got to re-record that. You know, like, please don't do that.
Well, I didn't even buy the on-air light. Actually, the owners of Catalyst Space, Justin, he bought that for me.
Oh, really?
He got that for me. Yeah. I didn't even have one because I don't know. I just
didn't. Were you coming out a lot saying, I'm recording? And he was probably like, no,
I don't think,
take this out.
I don't think I ever did.
So has anyone ever barged in, like, while you were, like, doing the podcast or something? Like, on a podcast?
Yeah, people have walked in, like, just, like, stuck their head in or whatever.
And just
like,
seen
no, but, like, no one's, like, ever barged in and, like, announced themselves or something crazy?
Like, hello, I am.
Who announces themselves coming in the room?
Oh, here he comes. Oh, here we go. I think watch the door be locked. This is going to be awesome if it is.
If it's locked.
Hey. Is that on-air light on? You see the on-air light on, dude?
Don't come in that spot.
This is what I'm talking
about. But really, here's the thing, though, Rob. Like, speaking of goals and things that like people do, like when me and Dev started this a while ago, we were like, okay, now we got to figure out how do we get this out of here. So we did a little research. So I'm like, okay, who around here is doing this? Who would be the competition? Who can we model after?
Right.
Rob Z. We see your
numbers. No,
we see
stop.
what you're doing. We did some research. On that, and I said, okay, we're gonna have to get on Rob Z's show. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we get in front of Rob Z. So this is where we're at right now. You're actually on our show right now.
Yeah.
Right. But that's how it came. You were on the whiteboard saying we have to get in front of Rob Z to get some information. Yeah. So we accomplished that.
Listen,
goal.
I can't let him get away with this. I can't. Coach, so he shot me a message, hey, do you know who Rob Z is? Because he wanted to go to the seminar that we eventually met you at for, I wasn't sure, was that generally running social media? That was like, I felt like that seminar was like a general.
It was like last February.
Yeah, February.
I did a bunch of different. I have a bunch of different.
It was like a social media. It was like social
It was like,
media.
I think it was just like a generalized one. Like it was just specifically talking about the things you can do with your Facebook pages and so on, and your just social media in general. I think it was very subpar, but. Not subpar. I didn't mean to say that.
Subpar.
I meant to say.
Let me say something real quick on that, because you guys came in like, what I love about social media and teaching this stuff, like it's so new, right? And in our area, Central Pennsylvania is so far behind, right? So we're like 10 years behind usually, especially when it comes to technology. So when I go in and teach those seminars, what I've learned to do, because I started kind of high level, and it just, I mean, nobody had any idea what I was talking about. I couldn't get through. So I think this is everything in life. Like when you're in something for a long time, you don't realize how much you know. So you got to dumb that way down. And not saying we're dumb. They haven't spent any time in it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what the amazing part of life to me is, like when you spend so much time in something, when you're really excited about it and you're into it, and you get lost in it, you forget. I forget all the time that people don't do what I do. It's like, oh, that's right. People don't know all this stuff. Because you just think they do, because it's how you live your life, and that's I don't know. It's funny to find out, because when you guys came, I'm sure you were like, wow, this is really basic information. But there's people who they don't know anything, and and when you're trying to bridge the gap, again, to use
good plug.
You're trying to bridge that gap, like it's a fine line. You got to walk that and figure that out.
Yeah, and but I really didn't mean to say the word subpar, so I'm sorry. But that is true. But I was just gonna say that wasn't what I was trying to say. What I meant to say was, like, it was very generalized knowledge. Like it was like how I've seen your lit lives. When you do lit lives, it's usually very specific, like a very target area. But you were like very generally saying, like, well, this is what social media is. There's Facebook Pixel. You can do this on Instagram to get more follows, and resub for resub, follow for follow, whatever that whole jazz is. And just saying those things that were very and then we did learn a lot, especially about the marketing aspects, like especially in the text, because I asked in the social media plain and simple group, I asked for the particular slides that talked about how to frame your questions better, or your posts better, so that way they're more engaging. Like someone reads it and it's like, man, I really want to know what you're selling. But I wanted to say this. I wanted to finish that story though, because we went in. But before that, Coach, love him to death. He's terrible with names of people. And
I am too, man. I'm bad with names.
He would text me, and this is what he texted me at first. He said, do you know Joe Z? I said, Joe Z? I don't know who Joe Z is. He's like, no. Like, Joe Z. I'm like, no, I don't know who Joe Z is. And
Joe Z and the Pussycat.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I'm like, you mean Rob? And then he said something like, I mean Rob Z. I'm like, yeah, Rob. I know who Rob Z is. He's only been on the radio since basically I wasn't alive. That's how I felt. And he was telling me, he's like, well, there's a seminar, we should go. He's around the area, he's big around here. I said, yeah, for sure, let's go. And like I said, to this day, in my phone, your phone number is in there as Joe Z. Joe Z.
That's awesome.
It took me a while to get your name. It's with everybody.
It is.
Everybody I got a name. It takes me like 30 times before I can get their name right.
I'm like that too, and I've been trying to get better at names, because I always forget people's names and it bothers me. So I'm always like, oh, hey buddy, hey man, what's up, dude? You know, like, and I'm like, I don't want to do that, but I can't figure out how to get names to stick.
It's
right.
worse.
Mine's bad though, because I don't say, hey, I don't use a name that you like, buddy, or hey, what's up, my guy. I just give them my own name, and it's
yours kind of yours kind of works. Coach is easy, and mine too. I think you're probably one of the rare people who can't remember Rob Z. It's like, it's pretty simple.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things. That's why I always kept it. Was like, it was just simple. I think it just kind of was like
that's. It's marketable.
Yeah,
it's definitely marketable.
I didn't create it, but I kept it.
It's just worse whenever I know that anxiety is worse when you ask somebody their name, they told you, and then an hour later you forgot, and you're like, oh shit. Like,
you're just like, I'm sorry, man, I forgot.
Dude, you have that limited amount of time. Like, you can meet somebody maybe 2 or 3 times and still say, "What's your name again?" But past that point, you need to know their name, or you can never say it again. You can never say their name, or like try.
Just you gotta wait until somebody.
So
you gotta somebody new.
It's a rule.
And introduce themselves.
It's a rule. 2 or 3.
You're just like listening in, like, is it? I gotta write it down.
Yeah,
and then you'll meet people like
conversation.
I tried that strategy, like where you meet somebody, oh, Devin, nice to meet you. Yeah, Devin, where are you from, Devin? What's going on, Devin? Like, you try to say his name a bunch, and I feel like a weirdo doing it.
Yeah, no,
so,
I feel like you are. I would know
too.
you are. If you said that to me, I would think you were a weirdo. You remind me of the people that work at Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Because they say I got a beef with Chick-fil-A people, and they say it would be my pleasure. It just creeps me out. Like, it makes me feel like I'm in a horror movie at like a cult, and they're like a cult trying to convert me, because they're like saying, it'd be my pleasure to serve you today, sir. Would you like that? It's my pleasure. And it's like, don't say that to me, please.
First of all, no 16-year-old has ever said my pleasure naturally in their entire life. It's never happened. That's
their script. Like, here, read the script. The script is kind of creepy, sir.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, please don't.
It is. And that's what I think was part of the lure to that thing last week with the war, is because, like, it seems like they would say, like, Chick-fil-A is the clean cut, but it's mysterious and a little creepy, and Popeyes is just flat out ghetto.
Right.
Like, that's the hood place to go to get a chicken sandwich.
Popeyes ain't bullshit. Popeyes like, you want this greasy ass chicken? Come get it. You know what you're getting. Yeah. And Chick-fil-A's like, oh, we're just the semblance of peace and tranquility.
It's all natural sourced beef, and
it's like
the lettuce is from Hollidaysburg.
The lettuce is from Hollidaysburg.
You know, it's like,
I don't know, man. I don't know if I trust lettuce from Hollidaysburg. I'd be like, I don't know. Oh man,
true.
We have.
Awesome.
We have gone way over time, but Rob,
good combo.
This has been a great conversation. Coach, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I don't know. Didn't we have a challenge or something we wanted to see if Rob?
Yeah. So Rob, we're gonna bring you up here real quick. I'm gonna put you on the screen share real fast, so everybody in here will be able to see what's on my screen. Yes, sir. Start sharing it.
Just a little Rob Z bridging the gap matchup to see if you can do it. We're going to do a Rob Z bridging the gap mashup. I don't see the weather right now being nice, but next spring, next summer, we're going out to do something like that, and you're coming, Rob.
We're going to collab.
Well, let's do it. Let's just do it now. Screw it, man.
You want to do it now? Hey, we can do it.
I mean, I don't mean like right now. It's kind of dark out.
Obviously not. It's 10 o'clock at night, and I think if we whip out anything that looks like
a gun,
we're going to be in trouble.
Done. We'd be getting arrested.
Yeah, dude. Well, considering that guy got stabbed in the neck in broad daylight down the street, like I'm not about to like go outside.
Yeah, I know, right? You know what I mean? But we got squirt guns, so we'll be safe. We'll be safe. So
okay, good.
But we were just gonna tell you that basically you had two options. You can either say yes or you can say no. And if you said no, just know that when you walk out of that door one day, you were getting drenched. So it didn't matter.
You might see a squirt gun.
So that's all I'm saying is like.
Squirt gun roll across
it's not
the ground.
a threat.
Dude, if you get a squirt gun near my audio equipment, I'm gonna get pissed. Real quick.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's why I said I'd wait for
No,
you to
dude, I'm
walk out
totally.
the
I'd
door.
love to. It'd be fun.
All right, that's what I like to hear. I love it. I like to hear it.
Like I said, so we'll set that up sometime here, maybe next coming weeks, and let's go drench some people and have a good time and all that. Bridging the Gap, Rob Z collab, that'll be fun. But as always, guys, we're out of here. Stay beautiful. Take care of yourselves. Have a great evening. See ya.